I am not wearing my pajamas. Pain. All right, another day, another spoiler review. We got some more new cards revealed from the upcoming Empires of the Ascendant expansion for Legends of Runeterra. We got a new keyword called Predict as well. So we're going to talk about Predict and all the cards that were revealed along with the new Predict keyword. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So the new keyword is Predict. It reads, you pick a card from among 3 in your deck and you shuffle the deck and put that card on top. So we're getting a mechanic similar to Scry from Magic the Gathering. Shout out to Mobilytics for the memes on this one. In Magic, however, Scry always had a number attached to it, and that number equated to how many cards you could look at specifically from the top of your deck. And you would choose how many among that number would go back on top of your deck in any order you want, and the rest were put onto the bottom of your deck also in any order that you wanted. Predict doesn't quite work the same way. You always look at 3 cards from your deck no matter what, and they're at random. They're not from the top of your deck. One of those 3 goes back on top, and then the rest get shuffled back into your deck. I'm glad we're getting this style of mechanic in this form. Some players that came from Magic might be a little bummed that this gives you less freedom than Scry does. If there's one thing I know for sure, is that card gamers love anything to do with either drawing cards or deck manipulation. But Scry is a bit of a it's a bit of a riskier mechanic in my opinion, where you could design a Scry card that just ends up being way too powerful, and then you have to end up nerfing it or banning it in some type of way. Granted, I've seen much worse in other card games. So I like that Predict is a toned down version of Scry. Essentially. Also keep in mind Legends of Runeterra has smaller deck sizes, 40 card decks compared to Magic's 60 card decks, at least typically. They're 60 cards. There are more cards that were revealed today than what's shown on this graphic, so we're actually going to switch to another graphic that has all the cards on it. All right, so we are on the other graphic that has all the cards that were revealed today. Quick shout out to Cosmic once again for putting together this graphic. He has been doing these since I think ever since the Rising Tides spoilers first started, pretty sure, but he's been doing these for a long time. Feel free to check out a link to his Twitch channel. He streams Legends of Runeterra on Twitch. The link is above my head. But yeah, let's start off with Ancient Preparations. This is a 1-mana landmark. Play Predict, and it has countdown 2, summon a Clockling. The Clockling is a 1-mana 2/2 with no other abilities. We'll be talking about these later in the video, but I think if you're running the Kahiri cards, specifically both of them here, then you're running Ancient Preparations. Outside of that, unless we're getting a champion that has some type of payoff effect, specifically from Predicting, then I don't see this card being used over the Preservarium landmark that's also shown here. It's nice that you get a body out of this landmark eventually, but I think players would rather draw 2 cards for 2 mana than pull 1 card from a random set of 3 and then just get a random 2/2. I could be wrong. And I want to be clear. I don't think this landmark, Ancient Preparations, is bad at all. I think it just has competition with the other landmark, Preservarium. Speaking of Preservarium, let's talk about that next. It's a 2-mana landmark that reads, when I'm summoned, draw 1, and has countdown 2, draw 1. This just seems like a solid landmark for any controller, even some mid-range decks looking to utilize Shurima. This is basically a 2-mana draw 2 eventually most of the time. Landmarks are already tough to remove since you need very specific cards to deal with them, and the fact that this is only 2 mana means there's very little cost to this effect, and you're likely not going to get punished in a huge way. For playing this except for against an aggro deck in the early game. Your opponent is probably not going to remove this either, unless their landmark removal doesn't do anything else for them in that particular matchup. And either way, it's going to be mana inefficient, since at least right now, you have to spend at least 3 mana to get rid of a landmark. What I am curious about, though, is whether or not Buried Sundisk decks are willing to run double landmarks with Sundisk and Preservarium. I think there's such a thing as too many landmarks, especially in a game that has 40 card decks. And decks right now, I feel like they can barely afford the card slots to play 1 landmark, at least in my opinion. Again, I could be wrong though. Let's talk Aspiring Chronomancer next. This is a 2-mana 2/3 that reads Play Predict. So this is likely going to be the go-to 2-drop for Shurima decks if they don't have access to anything better at 2 mana, except for possibly aggro decks that happen to be running Shurima, if that's even going to be a thing. 2-mana 2/3 units, they used to dominate the meta for a long time, and they're still quite good even now. This might even be a little too good, actually, to be honest, but that'll depend on how powerful Predict actually ends up being. You're definitely running this if you're playing either of the Kahiri cards. And speaking of the Kahiri cards, let's talk about the first one. Kahiri the Student, 3-mana 3/3. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 if you've predicted this game. It's a strong unit if your deck's running Ancient Preparations and Aspiring Chronomancer, as well as any other 1 or 2 mana card we might get that has Predict. This is very specific to decks running Predict though, since it's just a vanilla 3/3 with no additional text outside of those decks. Xenotype Researchers, also a 3-mana 3/3 that reads, when I'm summoned, grant 3 random allies in your deck +3/+3. This card seems kind of nutty. The best card I can compare this to is Avaros and Hearthguard, but Hearthguard buffs your whole deck. The problem with Hearthguard is that you need to draw enough buffed units and play them to get the full value out of Hearthguard. This card might take even longer to do that, depending on where the 3 buffed units in your deck are. You might never see any of them, potentially. That said, I think if you even draw one of them and play it in a game, Xenotype Researchers will have gotten its value as a card. So it's a lower floor than Avaros and Hearthguard for sure, but a potentially higher ceiling. Next we have Promising Future. This is a 4-mana slow spell that reads, grant an allied landmark. My countdown completion effect activates twice. This card's a little awkward right now, only because of the current countdown landmarks we've been shown so far. I mean, 2 of them are on here. You can't really use it on Preservarium or Ancient Preparations because by the time you have mana, they'll likely have already triggered their countdown effects and be destroyed, since Preservarium would go off on round 4, at the beginning of round 4. Now, the only exception would be if you banked 1 spell mana on round 1 and then played Preservarium on round 2. Then round 3, you could Promising Future. That would be the only exception. But outside of that, that leaves Buried Sundisk. And I don't think this card is actually that powerful with Buried Sundisk. Promising Future just kind of makes you win more with Sundisk than you likely will be already. Instead of getting 1 copy of each of your Ascendeds, you're getting 2. And with more cards like these, they're often a waste of deck space. Something I noticed on the text though is that if we're getting a spell like this that grants a countdown bonus specific to landmarks, I'm wondering if that means countdown as a mechanic might be exclusive to landmarks, at least for the time being anyway. And finally, we have Kahiri the Returned, a 6-mana 4/4 fearsome. When I'm summoned, create a copy of me in your deck. When you see me in a prediction, grant all allied copies of me everywhere +2/+2. So this is kind of a unique way to have inevitability in your deck. If the game goes long enough and you have enough prediction effects, you will eventually win the game with giant 6-mana Kahiris. I think this is too slow as a win condition, and I doubt something like this is even as good as Anivia and the Rekindler as a late game win con, since you still make copies of Anivia, but each Anivia is much harder to kill, and each of them deals damage to your opponent's entire board on attack. It would have been cool if this just granted +1/+1 to all allies everywhere, not just the copies of Kahiri on prediction. Maybe that's a little too good, but as it is now, I don't think this card is good enough to make an impact in ranked or tournament play. You'd have to play this in something like Piltover and Zon, running cards that make extra copies of this to speed this card up, but I'm kind of doubtful of that being a good strategy. But yeah, that's all the cards that got shown today. That was the new predict keyword that got shown today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to leave a like just below the video. Definitely helps the video out, get noticed by others in the community, helps boost it in the algorithm, of course, and ultimately helps the channel grow. So if you don't want to miss any future videos from me, consider subscribing to the channel. So that way you'll be able to catch my next videos that I put out. Again, I am doing my best to cover every single card reveal that gets shown, and there's going to be reveals every day. So for as long as I can do it, there'll be daily uploads as I continue to finish recovering from back issues. But yeah, if you made it to the end, again, hit the like button. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know that you enjoyed your stay. But all right, I'm rambling. I'm gonna get out of here. I will hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you next time.